Are we broadcasting?
I believe we are live.
We are live.
It looks like it.
Well, I'm trying to pull up the feed so I can see it.
I'm gonna just check audio coming out of my other machine here. So
Yeah, not a problem. Hmm.
all right, I just had to crank up my mic a little bit, and I think we'll be good. Still checking
Yeah.
audio. If you are joining us, apologies for the technical difficulties. We are trying to combat the Mac versus PC realm that is technology. Started on a Mac, and that went terribly. So we switched to a PC. Shocker. All right, that's enough audio for a second. Going to check levels again one more time, and then we're going to get rolling. So,
Yeah, hopefully no more technical difficulties through this.
hopefully not. Okay, I think I'm going to turn you down if I can. Can I? I don't know how to do that.
Not sure.
Oh, wait. No, I know how to do that. So you're coming through my feed here, so take you down just a smidge there. Go ahead. Check.
All right, can you hear me now?
That sounds great. Even less
Awesome.
background noise, too, so that's always good. All
Very
right,
good.
so
Very good.
I am going to start the local recording as well as the live stream because we're already
Awesome.
live, so we're going to go
Yeah,
there.
I know. I've got the feed up actually.
Sweet.
I'm a little bit delayed, it looks like.
Yeah, it's usually 10 or 15 seconds delayed on our end, so.
No, I was meaning like my feed seems to be a little delayed,
Oh, I
but
see what you're saying. Yeah,
not
it
a big deal
happens.
as long as the audio's good.
It sounds good on my end, so I think we're good.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Very good.
Let me check with one of my peeps here, make sure that we're good. So.
I'm actually going to send this over to Steph in case she wants to watch too.
Sweet. As soon as I hear back from her, she says yes. It looks like we are good to go. So, thanks for bearing with us. I know we're almost a half an hour late. My apologies. Like I said, Macs were misbehaving, so we said screw it and went to my ultra awesome gaming PC, which really has yet to fail me. So I'm super excited about that. Mostly it
just
comes
makes
down
you
to
start to realize that Macs are just.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't. You're not going to hear me say anything good about Apple at this point in time.
No, me either.
It's yeah. So, um. Anyways, I'm sitting here in the eciov studios. I've got Dennis with me. Say hi, Dennis.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going out there,
You
internet
guys,
world?
you guys should be able to see Dennis. He's that way. That way. There we go. And I'm Josh right here. I am the editor-in-chief of eciov.com, and Dennis is an amazing homebrewer that we have here in Denver. He's very modest, so he's going to say that he may not be amazing, but yeah, he's very, very smart dude. So,
Well, I definitely appreciate the high acclaim from you.
So, this is the Alcohol by Volume podcast. It's something we started up a couple years ago and haven't had a whole lot of time for. But one of our resolutions this year was just to do better with our podcasts. And
Yes, indeed.
specifically Dennis doing homebrewing stuff. He's not just doing the podcast with me on a semi-regular basis. He's actually diving back into the homebrew thing. He just got married, which congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
He did a whole bunch of beer for the wedding and all that kind of stuff. But the first thing that I want to do is show you what I'm drinking. I am drinking Epic Brewing's raspberry ale. It is the
Very nice.
brainless raspberries. Epic Brewing is a brewery here in Denver. Am I wrong in saying they also have a location in Utah? Is that ringing any
I'm
bells?
actually not positive on that.
But anyways, this was specifically brewed here in Denver, and since we're a Denver-based podcast, I like to feature local beers as much as I can, and Dennis does his own brewing, so he's going to actually tell us about what he has, but let me take a sip of this, and I'm going to see what I think really quick.
Go for it.
Okay. Honestly, I've been spending so much time with the tech part of the podcast that I haven't had a chance to take my sip yet. So,
Not a problem. I haven't even opened mine yet. I figured I'd wait till we were on air.
so here's what the description says. Crafted especially for those who seek bright, fresh, and real raspberry flavors in a convenient size. We brew exclusively with natural raspberry puree, which gives the beer its unique pink color, as well as hints of raspberry bubble gum. Interesting. Sweet fruit jam, and a pleasant dryness that makes this beer perfect for easygoing affairs, indoor or out. I have to say it's a decent tasting beer. But I can't really say that there's a very forward tasting raspberry in the beer. It's there, but it's just a hint of it. At least that's what it feels like to me. Have you ever had this one, Dennis?
I haven't had that one, actually. I tend to shy away from the fruit beers because they're usually a bit too fruit forward. Sounds like I might like that one, though.
I would say that with this one, yeah. I would definitely say this is not fruit forward. More of a IPA with maybe a hint of raspberry. Granted, I don't know what the base is. It doesn't really say what they were going for. It's just a raspberry beer, so I'm guessing it's based on the taste. I'm guessing it's an IPA with a raspberry hint, but still good. Still very, very, very drinkable. But fruit forward, it is not. What are you drinking, Dennis?
Well, I'm actually going to crack it open and pour it right on camera. So we've got one of my wedding beers.
Oh, you made your own labels and everything, huh?
Yes. So what we did for this, for our wedding, we actually made 5 different beers.
Okay.
Served it up on tap.
Nice.
Built a keezer for it, which is basically just a kegerator built out of a chest freezer.
Okay, cool.
We built it from scratch, and we're really pleased with the results. And this is one of the 5 beers that we made. This one is the IPA. And this one did get a little overcarbonated, as you can tell.
Yep. Nice.
But what we did is we made actually 2 of each batch, and we gave out bottles of them as party favors at the wedding.
That is awesome. So cool.
Yeah, so I've definitely had plenty of this beer already. It's a very good IPA. I've actually made this one before in the past.
Cool.
Our good friend Sean Caspian actually helped me make it the first time I ever made it. So It's a pretty tasty IPA.
Right, and Sean will be joining us here on our gaming podcast starting this month as well. If you haven't checked that out before, we're relaunching that again this year as well. Again, that's Sean Caspian. You can check him out at youtube.com/TheSeanCaspian. But if you are done promoting yourself and Sean and me, the website and all that kind of stuff, check it out at eciov.com. It's voice spelled backwards. And you'll actually be able to see this podcast at eciov.com/ABV for alcohol by volume /7, since this is our 7th episode. You'll be able to actually check it out there. We'll put all the show notes in there, everything we discuss here. We'll link out to Epic Brewing so you can check out the Raspberry Ale. Well, Dennis, you don't have a page up about your beer at this point, I'm guessing, but...
we actually do.
You do?
We still have our beer from the wedding up at the wedding website, so we'll make sure to link to that as well.
We'll link there. And we'll also talk about any news items that we hit on the podcast as well, which, Dennis, that leads me to the first news item. What are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about just the rumor that's spreading about New Belgium selling. It's
You
really
said that with a
crazy
little
how many
disgust.
websites pick this up.
Yeah, yeah. It's so tell me what's up. What's going on with this?
Well, all right. So as you know, with businesses, you have to be, looking at what you're valued at and looking for investors and things like that, right?
Sure.
Like just to be able to grow. Well,
Totally.
New Belgium was doing the same thing right around the same time that Breckenridge Brewing was announced that they were bought by Anheuser-Busch.
Yep.
And so all these news outlets started saying that they were looking for a sale.
Sure.
Well, they're not. There's no sale pending. It's 100% employee owned. So even if there was the possibility of a sale right now, they would all have to actually agree to it, which
Right.
having an entirely employee owned company, that's going to be difficult.
I would imagine.
So
So
there's actually a quote from the previous CEO. She's now just a chairperson at the company,
yeah.
uh, who said that. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the exact quote. Here we go. Kim Jordan, who
Uh huh.
said, "quote New Belgium Brewing's board of directors has an obligation to have ongoing dialogue with the capital markets with the goal of making sure that we remain strong as leaders in the craft brewing industry. There
Mm,
is no deal pending at this time."
interesting.
So
S-
everyone can just kind of calm down. They're not looking to sell. They're just trying to make sure that they stay competitive and grow as a company.
I can tell you, my Twitter feed blew up the day that Breckenridge sold to Anheuser. I was just like,
Oh my
oh
God.
gosh, which is unfortunate because there was a lot of Breckenridge Brewing stuff that I liked, and it's not like I don't know. I guess I should say it's not like that's going away. It's still going to exist as a brand, right?
Yes, it is.
It's
In
just a
fact, the current rumor, and we'll talk about it more later, but the current rumor is that nothing's going to change. We'll talk about that in a later episode,
okay,
though.
whether or not it actually does change.
Exactly.
Okay, and so the word is at this point, New Belgium is not selling. So my favorite beer, and if you've listened to any of the other episodes, you would have definitely have heard this. But I know it's been a while. My favorite beer, which is 1554, will not die yet.
No, it won't.
Keyword being yet. And I do want to say that any company, in order to stay competitive in the market, has to be looking for investors at all times. It's not something that if they want to grow, they can just continue growing off of profits. Growth tends to be exponential, and if you have more ideas that you want to go through, and if you want to actually grow at a rate that the market it likes, a rate that the market likes, then you really have to even consider outside investments. You can't just hope that what you do is actually going to be good enough. It's
Yeah, exactly.
taking in
So,
outside investments is really not a bad thing for a company, but that's not really the kind of thing that people were rumoring. People were saying, oh, they're going to get bought out by somebody. Well, no, that's not what it seems like at this point. It's not what I think is going to happen. It's not what Dennis thinks is going to happen. And I sure as heck hope that it doesn't happen, but there's always tomorrow. So,
yep. You never know what the future is going to bring, but currently,
so
New
true.
Belgium's safe.
So Dennis, it was recently Christmas time,
Yes.
and lots and lots of you guys who would be listening to this podcast, and ladies, homebrewing is not something that is male exclusive. We totally support ladies brewing. That's awesome. The ultimate part about that is a lot of you got homebrewing kits for Christmas. At least that's what we're assuming. And so this episode is really for you. Dennis is going to talk to us about the basic materials in a homebrew setup and just kind of what's up with that. Dennis, why don't you go ahead and take it away, and I'll ask you questions as they come about.
Yeah, so I mean, as you know from previous episodes, I got my start by getting one of these kits. It comes with all that you need to get started making beer,
Right.
making 5 gallons at a time. The very basic kits, you're going to find them at most local homebrew stores, online suppliers. Pretty much anywhere you go looking for this type of equipment, you're going to end up with at the bare minimum, a 6.5 gallon bucket
Yep.
with a lid and an airlock to go on it. A 6.5 gallon bottling bucket, which the difference with that is it has a spigot at the bottom so that you can actually bottle from the bottom of the bucket so you don't have to disturb the beer. It'll usually come with some form of siphon and tubing to be able to transfer the beer out of the fermenting bucket into the bottling bucket, as well as usually some miscellaneous stuff like some sanitizer, some bottle caps, a bottle capper, and maybe some brushes and things like that.
Hmm.
A lot of times, these kits will also come with a recipe so that you can just get going right out of the box. It's truly
Sure.
get started and start brewing right away.
Now, are any of these recipes that it come with are actually worth making? Or
Yes,
yeah,
actually.
that's good.
So with Northern Brewer, for instance, which is the site I'm looking at, they're kind of the king of the online homebrew stores. They give you an option of being able to select a number of different um, recipes, and I've actually brewed at least two out of the three that they have offered in the past and loved the beers. I thought that
Nice.
they were very delicious beers.
That's cool. So the talk, one of the things you mentioned in that list was brushes.
Mhm.
What are those for?
So if you do get a brush, it's probably going to be for the bottles because you don't want to use anything abrasive on the inside of the bucket because it can scratch it and give a place for bacteria to grow. So with these kits, it'll usually come with a small brush to be able to clean out your bottles.
Okay.
That way, if you're reusing your bottles or collecting them from drinking other delicious craft beer, then you have a way of being able to get in there and scrubbing anything out in case you let it sit for too long before you washed it out.
Sure. And what kind of tips can you give people if they did end up with one of these kits as a first time kind of thing? Any gotchas really with brewing that they should be paying attention to that the kit doesn't necessarily talk about?
Yeah, so these kits have gotten a lot better as far as like the instructions. So definitely read the instructions when you get it. Make sure
Or
that you
TFM.
understand the process. The more reading you can do, the better. Check out online sources, that sort of thing.
Sure.
The one thing I remember from when I got started, the two kind of gotchas I ran into was trying to get the boiling wort down to pitching temperature for the yeast. It's really, really difficult if you don't do it right. I hadn't planned for it, so I was trying to do just a cold water bath followed by setting it outside in the freezing temperatures, and it took forever.
Right.
So make sure you have some ice on hand so you can do a real ice bath and work at getting that down to the right temperature. The other one was actually after I got it in the fermenter, I went and checked on it one day, and the wort was fermenting so vigorously that it actually clogged up the airlock and threatened to actually blow off the top of the fermenter and make a huge mess out of my closet.
Nice.
It is kind of scary if you aren't ready for it. It's called a
Okay.
blow off. The
Well,
easiest
there's actually
solution
a
for
term
it
for it,
is
huh?
to take. Sorry, what was that?
There's actually a term for it.
There is. Yeah. So the easiest thing to do is you can take your siphon hose and you can, put it on top of the airlock. You take it apart and you can attach it there or put it into the airlock hole and run that into a jug with water to make sure that the hose is under the surface of the water. That way there's a lot more area for the wort to go as it's fermenting, and that way it doesn't cause an explosion or a blow off. If you don't have access to any of that, you can just take the airlock and clean it very regularly, check on it, and make sure it doesn't get completely clogged, which is what I ended up doing. And it does work.
Sweet. Anything else that they should really be concerned about with their first batch?
Not really. I mean, take your time with it. Don't try and rush it. It's not going to be something that you're drinking a week after you brew it. Expect at least 3 to 4 weeks for you to have a beer that's actually drinkable, and that's if you're following the schedule and the instructions.
Sure.
And if you let it age even a few weeks longer than that after it's been in the bottles, then it's going to just become an even better beer. As long as you wait a little bit longer, the yeast really give the beer a chance to shine, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be my biggest issue with brewing in general. I'm not a home brewing expert, and I have yet to actually brew a batch myself. I've talked and discussed this significantly at length with Dennis, and it's something
Hmm.
I'd love to do, but it does take a fair amount of time to actually devote to it and get going, as well as I like to do things the expensive way too. And so my list of getting started components are significantly more than what you really need. But you can do
Yeah,
it with you can do it with
that's
very
very
minimal
true. You can
stuff.
do it for very inexpensive.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid on Northern Brewer, I'm not trying to plug them or anything. They're not a sponsor,
No.
but they're a great resource.
Yeah.
Their kits start at $90 and it comes with the ingredients for your first batch of beer. So the only thing you have to find are the bottles.
Yep. Yeah, and the bottles are relatively inexpensive too.
Hmm.
If you really look at it compared to what you're gonna spend on a nice brew at the liquor store as compared to this plus bottles, if you do 2 batches, you end up cheaper than you would buying all of that at the liquor store. So,
You certainly can, yes.
not something that you're going to have the most efficient system or anything like that for that price, but it's still going to be good. It's still a great way to get started. I think my biggest struggle would be waiting the right amount of time because
Hmm.
if I made myself a chocolate milk stout or something something that I really like, I wouldn't want to wait the full amount of time in order to actually let it go. And Dennis, is there such a thing as too long?
It depends on the beer.
Okay.
If you're talking about a stout or something with a really malty flavor to it that doesn't really rely on the hops, then those can actually benefit from a little bit of extra age. Let them mellow out a bit, let them smooth out, get rid of some of the off flavors that you can get from the yeast if it's fermented too warm or too cold.
Mm.
Um, Generally speaking, 2 or 3 months is not going to hurt a stout in the slightest.
Okay.
An
Is it going to
IPA, on the
improve it?
other hand, with a lot of hop forward character, you're probably going to want to drink that within about a month and a half to 2 months. You're going to want to start drinking it. Now,
Okay.
those can age, but the longer they go, the less fresh those hops are going to be.
Okay. So a hoppy beer, you typically want to drink right at the right time, whereas a stout, you can let it age. Is that
Yeah, yeah, especially the higher alcohol malty beers, stouts or imperial porters or barley wines. Those sorts of things can definitely age a lot longer
okay?
because that alcohol flavor will mellow out with them.
Gotcha. Sweet. Well, we are running close to time. We're doing shorter episodes this go around. We're not going to do an entire hour's worth for every episode. Dennis, do you have anything else that you want to try and squeeze into this episode today?
The one thing I just thought of actually that would be very beneficial, and I wish I would have started from the very beginning, is
So pay
even if it's
attention.
just a notebook, get yourself some way of tracking everything you're doing.
Ah,
Write down everything, no matter how minor you think it is,
yeah,
because if you do something and find that it doesn't work or causes problems down the line, then
yeah,
you know exactly what it was and you can go back and correct it.
definitely. Well, and I know that you've been pretty religious about doing that your time, and you've been able to actually save a batch of beer by doing that. Is that right?
I have.
Yeah. So we've heard his war stories over the last few years, and how things have gone wrong. You're gonna find things that you don't predict, and the more information that you write down about the process and what you did and all that kind of stuff, the more the community, the homebrewing community, would even be able to help you. If you can tell them exactly what's going on with your brew, then walk into a local homebrew store if you have one and say, "Hey, here's what's up," and they're going to be like, "Okay, what you do?" And then they can say, "All right, well, here's the solution," if there is one.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
and if you don't have a local homebrew store, then get online to there are many resources out there between
lots,
message boards,
yeah,
Reddit,
yeah.
chat rooms, all
Reddit's thing
kinds of
is
stuff. I mean,
huge
you
at
can
this
find
point.
help out
It's
there.
just crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So lots of sweet tips there, especially if you're just getting going. I'm glad that you guys snagged a kit for Christmas if you did. We stay tuned to eciov as we will have more and more tips for you as we go. We're just talking, kind of a back to basics kind of thing here with this podcast episode. We're gonna live stream these on YouTube. We'll post on social media, at least a few hours before we get going. Hopefully, if we can get into a routine, we'll start doing a weekly thing or a couple weeks or whatever it is at the same time, so you can join us and comment and all that kind of stuff. So live on YouTube, but you'll be able to check it out on the website. It's eciov.com/abv/7. That's where you'll find this one here. Thanks, Dennis, and
Thank you.
we'll catch you next time.
See you later, guys.
And that's the end of episode 1. If you are
And
still
if
watching,
you're watching live, you get to watch all the in-between stuff.
woo! Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording and then just start it back up again.
All right.
Cool. I'll be right back. We will be right back. Bum-bum.
Okay.
Oh, wow. All right, we're getting rolling here. Let me get out of the live stream on YouTube because I think it should have split that up into 2 shows. My channel. Live now. Episode 8. Wonderful. Boom.
Huh?
Boom.
Boom.
Yeah. I should probably have done this against the white background or something, but oh well.
It's all right. Next time we'll just put a beach behind you.
I can green screen it into anything.
I know. That's what I'm saying. We'll have like some beach behind you, or
Totally.
I don't know.
Do you know? So technical thing. Nobody's going to care about this except for Dennis. But sorry. That XSplit, which is what I use to do all the live broadcasting and stuff, is actually better at chroma keying than either Final Cut or Adobe.
Wow, really?
It's stupid. I don't even. I can't explain it. It's on the fly chroma key and it's perfect. I have not had a single issue with it, and Sean actually spent hours editing that video that we did for eciov. Or, well, I guess it was for Sean's channel. I posted it on eciov, all that kind of stuff about the Elder Scrolls game.
Oh, yeah.
He did that in Adobe Premiere, and it took him hours to get all the green screen stuff done right. And I was just like,
Jesus.
I was just like, oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Well, leave it to the gamers to, figure out a program that can do things on the fly better.
Right? Seriously. It's disappointing, though, that it is PC only. Because, the amount of overhead that this has is almost nothing.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. The fact that I can play one of the most resource-heavy games on the market with no lag, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is just... granted, my box is ridiculous, but still interesting. All right. Enough chit-chat. We should do episode 2.
All right.
All right, so timestamp on you is 38:45, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. I have no idea how long the first one was.
Oh, you know what? Actually, before we get started on it, let me send you the links for this one.
Links for...
You are not
yeah.
on...
Oh, hang on. I can get there.
Google?
Yep.
Google?
I just got on, so... It's the nice thing about doing with this 2 computers. There we go.
Yeah, I'm doing it with 2.
We're nerds.
Yep.
No arguing that.
Nope, not at all. All right, so these are the 2 I'm going to reference. Let me know that you got them.
Oh, shoot. Do it again. Sorry.
Ah,
Sorry.
Jesus.
Apparently I wasn't available. I was only on iMessage. There's one.
Damn it. Do it this way. My desk is really crowded right now.
You should see mine.
Well,
I've
all right.
got
I'm
two
going to
six
get
packs
a
of beer
camera.
and a whole bunch of audio recording equipment. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's great.
Well, I'm going to get a camera so I don't have to use my laptop to be able to do the video.
Yeah. I have an
But,
extra one if you want it.
oh, yeah, that'd work.
I think I paid like $70 for it, and I ended up buying a nicer one. So
Oh, well, $70 is about what I was looking to spend, so
there you
I
go.
would be down for that.
Sweet. Next time we record here, we'll just give it to you.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that we announced that to the world on YouTube. Yes, if you want to break into my home and steal a $70 webcam, knock yourself out. I don't care. Okay, so I am streaming and recording locally, so I think we are good to go. I need to figure out a way to look up at the camera more.
Yeah, I'm trying
it
to
gets a
train
little-
myself on the little green dot.
Well, it's way easier for you. I'm on a 4K display, so my camera's way up there. It's yeah. Brag much, Josh? Sorry, I didn't mean to be a braggart. Okay. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Let's see if I can just make this smaller. Oh, hey, there we go. Now I look like I'm looking at stuff. Sort of. We are going...
Oh, yeah. I got to show you this.
Oh, these
See
two
that?
articles. The poster?
Yeah.
I can't tell what it is right now. It's really small.
All right.
What
At
is
the
it?
end of it, remind me. Not
Okay.
during the recording, but remind me and I'll bring
Okay.
it closer.
Okay. Well, I could probably zoom in a little, too, because I shrunk you so that you're right under my camera. So... Oh, wow. That's interesting. I just read the title of that one.
Yeah, it is a chandelier made out of beer bottles, and the very bottom one is the only part that's in color, and it's my favorite beer, the Lawfully.
Nice.
Yeah,
Very cool.
my cousin actually took that picture.
Really? And you made a
Yeah.
poster out of it?
No, ran into her at a little art thing downtown and bought it. So
Really?
yeah,
That's cool.
I know.
You guys
It
have
was random,
artsy cousins,
apparently.
apparently. Okay. So I've got the links. I say we go.
All right, ready to go.
Okay. So, I'm gonna open this before. Oh, fizzing.
Sounds tasty.
Is that honey? Anyways, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yep.
Hey everybody, this is Josh with eciov.com. I have Dennis here with me. Say hi, Dennis.
Hello.
This is the Alcohol by Volume podcast, episode 8, which you can find on our website at eciov.com/abv/8, or just watch it live here on YouTube. If you have a question, toss it into the comment box. If for some reason you do miss the live recording to ask a question, you can always email us. Just hit the email button on the eciov website, and we'll get it to the right people. This week, my beer that I am drinking is, Dennis, correct me how to say this. I say Wincoop. Is it Wine Coop or Wincoop?
I do wine coop.
Do you say Wine
but,
Coop?
Yeah, I don't know if there's actually a correct way of pronouncing that.
Well, we'll just have to get in touch with Hickenlooper and see what he says.
Hey, he must live down the street from me, right?
Yeah, totally. But anyways, Wincoop is a wine coop. I don't, whatever. They're a local brewery, and I happened to pick up a 6-pack of their black lager. They claim to be Denver's first craft brewery. Are they? I don't know. It's quite a bold claim. May very well be. They are one of the bigger ones, I suppose. They've got a giant location downtown Denver, lots of pool tables, and relatively decent food. So if you find yourself in Denver and you're looking for a place with good beer and good food and a relatively loud atmosphere, Wynkoop is the place for you to go. The drink that I am drinking here, let's see, it has some specs on it, I guess. It says yeast was a German lager, malts, North American premium 2-row Munich, Carafa 3, Karamunic, and black malt. Dennis may know more about that than I do, but then they've got hops of German Tettnang and Czech Saz. That's what it says is in here. This gold medal beer has a crisp, clean finish of a lager with a dark, roasty flavor you've come to love. It's the lighter side of dark, which actually happens to be my least favorite side of dark. I like dark. Dark beer is better, in my opinion. When I took a sip, when I opened the beer, it actually started fizzing a little bit. It sat in the car on the way home, so I'm sure it got a little bit shaken up. But took a sip, but I'm going to take another sip right now. Yeah, I mean, it's not what it's hoping for, honestly. When I get black lager, I feel dark. Am I wrong in assuming that, Dennis?
You are actually. Black lagers are actually supposed to be just a maltier version of a traditional lager, so it's going to be a much brighter flavor and mouthfeel.
Well, then there you go. It's exactly what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's
exactly.
Just, honestly, my inexperience talking. That's why I am not the expert on this. I am just the comedic effect, fat guy in a little shirt, you know. Yeah. But thank you for clarifying that, Dennis. It is still quite good. I have to say that. I definitely like the overall taste to it. Is it a little bitter? Is that fair? There is definitely a little bitter thing to it. Excuse me, and I thought I tasted a little honey, but I'm not sure about that one.
You could probably get that from some of the malts. The bitterness probably comes from the malts as well. There's not going to be a lot of hops in that because it's not intended to be a hoppy beer.
Right.
Lagers tend to have a little bit of a crisp, bitter bite to them because of the yeast, as well as, in this case, because of the darker malts.
Gotcha. So this is the B3K Black Lager from Wynkoop, or Wynkoop. I don't know what it is. Beer Advocate gives it an 81 out of 100. So a lot of people like it. Apparently I'm one of the few who doesn't. It's, like I said, not the type of beer I was going for. I should have just got a stout, you know. That's just my preference. Heavy,
but
beer.
You know what? You're not going to know what you like until you branch out and try something else,
That's the point. Every single podcast we do, I'm going to try a beer that I've never tried before. And
there you go.
This is, well, unless I'm drinking one of Dennis's beers. But today I'm trying two beers. One beer in this episode, but this was the Black Lager from Wynkoop Brewing. Dennis, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking the another one of our wedding beers. This one's called the Runaway Red.
That looks awful lot like the Fat Tire label.
Yeah, we had someone modify some labels for us. Nice. So anyway, this is what it looks like. If we can get a good look at that. That's a nice red ale.
Red ale.
Yes,
I almost grabbed one of those today.
A little bit more of a malty flavor to it. Not a lot of hops. Really smooth, very similar to an amber ale, actually.
Okay, sweet.
So,
why don't you tell us a 2-minute scope of how the brew went?
So with these, it was actually a little out of the norm for me because I was making 2 batches at the same time. Since we were kegging one, as I said that in the previous episode, as well as bottling so that we could give them away as party favors at our wedding. So what I did to try and keep them as consistent as I could, just due to my limited equipment was I actually had two separate pots going at the same time that I staggered by about 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
So I would start the boil on one, and about 15 to 20 minutes later, I would start the boil on the other and wrap them both up very close to each other.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was definitely interesting having both propane burners and both pots going at once and trying to manage the hop additions and keeping things clean and organized and
Yeah.
everything all at once.
No cross
Um,
contamination or anything like that, too.
yeah, just trying to keep everything as consistent as I possibly could, measuring out my water levels the same, trying to keep the boil at the same level and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Having different equipment really made it a challenge, actually.
For sure.
And actually, for that purpose, for these beers, I went back to doing extract brewing, even though I'm normally an all grain brewer, purely for the fact that it would save me a lot of time in the brew day, as well as help me make things as consistent as possible, because I'm not trying to hit strike and mash temperatures and all that kind of stuff on two
Sure.
completely separate mashes.
Take another minute and tell us the difference between all grain and extract.
So, extract, you're taking either a liquid or a dry malt extract, which a company has already done all of the mashing for you, where they take the dry grains, add the hot water to it, and convert the grains into sugar.
Sure.
Then they condense it down into either liquid or dry malt and package it up. So, you don't have to worry about taking the dry grains and converting them yourself.
Gotcha.
All grain, I find it a lot more fun and interesting. You can make great beer either way, especially with the quality of ingredients these days.
Sure.
So, really, it's your preference. For me, I really enjoy actually taking the raw grain. It's been malted, but taking the raw grain and making a beer from that from start to finish.
Sure. Absolutely. It ends up being, I don't know, it makes you feel a little bit more accomplished too, wouldn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
to me,
it
would.
feels more like
Yeah.
a quote unquote real brewer.
Yeah.
It makes it feel a lot more personal to be able to, dive in and actually piece together the grain bill and,
Right.
put it into your mash tun and, make a beer out of it.
For sure. Yeah. So what kind of news do we have going on this week?
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about the sale of Breckenridge Brewery to Anheuser-Busch, because this is big. This is really big, especially for Colorado.
Yeah, for sure.
Breckenridge Brewery is one of the biggest breweries in Colorado. They're well known. They're all over the place. They make really good beer.
Yep.
That's very consistent. They have multiple restaurants. They're just it came to a shock, or it came as a shock to
It sure did.
everyone.
Yeah. As I mentioned before,
that this
my
happened.
Twitter feed blew up as soon as that as soon as that news came through. I was actually surprised, really surprised that was the thing. But anyways, what happened? Why did it happen? And how did it happen?
Right. So everyone was thinking, because earlier last year, before this merger happened, months before, Breckenridge Brewery stated that they were not looking to sell. They weren't going to merge. That's kind of the fear with New Belgium, why that became a thing that we talked about last episode.
Sure.
In this case, what it was is Wine Coop Breckenridge is a organization that was put together about 4 years ago that manages the Wine Coop Brewing Company as well as the Breckenridge Brewing. It is a kind of overseeing organization, and they decided after Breckenridge built this new farm to table restaurant brewery megaplex thing out in Littleton,
Yeah.
that they didn't want to take on that big of a project to manage.
Huh.
And so Breckenridge was left with needing investors to be able to pay for what they had just done. Kind of talking about that needing someone to
That's
help you cover the
interesting.
costs, because you can't just do it on profits alone.
So there had to have been some sort of a fallout between the two.
Yeah, so I want to say he was the president. The president, Todd Usry, Usry, was actually really angry that the group wasn't able to manage it, and that Anheuser-Busch was the only one to really step up and offer them what they were looking for.
Hmm.
It was won in a 2-1 vote,
Wow.
Oh no, he was outvoted by 2. I'm not sure what the total numbers were,
Okay.
as
Okay.
far as deciding to actually accept Anheuser-Busch's offer.
Sure. That's interesting.
Now, he does say in this article, which we'll link in the show notes, that he was initially very angry about it, but after hearing what Anheuser-Busch had to say and looking at the proposal, he actually became very okay with it.
Hmm.
What Anheuser-Busch is claiming is that they are not intending to meddle in their operations or change anything. They're going to let them operate as they have been. They're just
For now.
basically footing the bill.
Yeah. For now. Well,
Exactly.
if we start seeing things get watered down, then I'll be angry. Um, but
Well,
go ahead.
I think the biggest thing with this is that, a very large craft brewery is now no longer a craft brewery, which actually
Oh yeah.
hurts the numbers that the craft brewers have
Mm.
as far as like being able to fight the big beer companies.
That's true. Yeah, because I mean, big beer. Believe it or not, as we talk about big oil and all that kind of stuff. Big beer is actually pretty, I guess, instrumental in our politics as we
Hmm.
know it. So, craft brewers. I mean, Dennis is saying they have to fight against big beer. Well, it's true. They do. A lot of the stupid regulations that are out there come from big beer in order to try and prevent small craft companies from essentially being able to do anything to threaten the position they're in already. So, but we're not a politics podcast, so we're gonna move away from that subject. And Dennis, what's our actual topic for the day?
Well, I wanted to expand a bit on the conversation we had in the last episode. I wanted to,
Sure.
talk about some of the gotchas you can get with the brewing, kind of beyond what we talked about.
Mm.
Not wanting to, just dive headfirst into it and go after the most insane beer you can come up with, and actually kind of learning the basics before you, try something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And talk a little bit about some of the extra equipment that you could supplement that new kit with that will really help you make quality beer.
So if you spent the $90 on the kit from someplace like Northern Brewer or one of the other online stores, what are the talk to me about what kind of extra equipment I could do to make that first batch easier.
Yeah, so it's not so much that you're making it easier, it's more that
Okay.
you're giving yourself more knowledge about your beer and knowing what it does. So obviously, you want to have a good sanitizer. We talked about that.
Yep.
You don't want to have to rely on something like bleach because, as you know, bleach is toxic to humans. So you definitely don't want to use something like that. So you should, if your kit didn't come with it, you should invest in a good no rinse sanitizer like Star San or One Step Sanitizer. There's a lot of different ones out there.
Okay.
As long as it's a no rinse, then that means you can just coat the surfaces, dump it out, pour your beer into it, and you're
Mm-hmm.
totally fine. Just
Gotcha.
follow the instructions. But the biggest piece would be a hydrometer. It's the only way that you're going to know how much alcohol is in your beer.
Which
It
ultimately determines the percentage that everybody wants to know. Because, okay, well, how drunk am I going to get off of your beer, Dennis?
Yeah, there's definitely that, which is really nice to know.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you can drink a beer and just know generally that it's going to be either high or low alcohol just by taste.
Sure.
But beyond that, it's the only way you're going to know that your beer is done fermenting.
Mm.
If you don't take an original gravity, which you put the hygrometer or hydrometer into the wort before you pitch the yeast,
Right.
and it will tell you your starting gravity on a certain scale. It can be measured in either specific gravity or in bricks. I'm not going to go too much into that during this episode, but that number will tell you how much sugar is in the solution.
Right.
Then a week later, you want to start taking daily readings. You want to sanitize your wine thief or beer thief, which is a great way of getting some beer out of the vessel.
Right.
Or if you're using the bucket, you can actually just drop it right in there, make sure everything's sanitized. And when you see for 3 days in a row that the reading is consistent and it hasn't gone down or changed at all, then you know that the beer is actually done fermenting.
Yeah.
There's no other way of knowing when your beer is done fermenting.
besides just guessing that, hey, it's been a month, so it's probably done.
Right. Now, time does work. I mean, obviously, if you give it 2 months,
Yeah.
then the likelihood of your beer being done is pretty good.
Yeah.
You still have no guarantee.
Right.
The problem is if it's not done and you go to bottle it, when you add the sugar to add carbonation, you're going to end up with literally a glass bomb.
Right. Let's pass on that. Um,
Exactly.
so, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is, we actually did talk about some of these basics and beginning brewing and all that kind of stuff in our first few episodes as well. So if this is something that is you are beyond what we're talking about right now, definitely head back to the website and listen to some of the earlier stuff. We'll have all of this stuff on iTunes as well. You should just be able to search for alcohol by volume in the iTunes store. That should be in there this week. Just waiting for Apple for approval on stuff and all that jazz. But check out the older episodes. Obviously as we go here, we're going to continue talking about this stuff too. What was the other thing you wanted to mention, Dennis?
So this one is more just, everyone gets so excited, like you were saying, wanting to have these really big stouts and, these crazy beers. And, it's kind of funny how a lot of people, when they first start to make beer, want to go out and make a chocolate chili mint monstrosity of a beer that just has like 10 different spices. And don't do that. Don't go after the 15% alcohol. Don't go after the pumpkin beer with 5 different spices. Start simple.
Yeah.
Make a pale ale. Make an amber or an IPA or even just a regular stout. Don't go super crazy.
Yeah.
And take your time. Learn the basics, because if your first 1 or 2 beers turns out terrible and undrinkable, you're less likely to want to continue in the hobby. But if you've made 10, 12, 15 beers and then all of a sudden you have one that's just not palatable, at that point you have the experience and just know that, okay, well, that wasn't a good idea. Let's do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be that guy.
I was that actually with my first few beers, and I was so ready to make a chocolate mint stout. And I ended up, just for various reasons, not making one for at least a year. And by the time I made it, it turned out horrible.
Ugh.
But I had made enough beer at that point that I was like, okay, well, live and learn. Chocolate mint, probably not the best combination the way I made it.
Yeah.
Now, since then, I've had some chocolate mint stouts that have been phenomenal. So I'm probably going to go back and try it again.
Yeah.
But that initial experiment failed miserably.
Yes. There was another one that you made that was really, really kind of strange at one point. Have you done a Saison? I think you had done a Saison at some point.
I actually haven't done a Saison. And funny you mentioned that, because I just made up a recipe that I am going to be brewing up in the next few weeks.
Nice.
We're in the middle of a kitchen remodel, so it might be a month out. But I'm wanting to make a blood orange Saison. So I'm hoping to have that one. Yeah.
You have my interest peaked on that.
Yeah, so I pulled up my brewing software, started making a recipe for a Saison.
Sure.
Plan on adding some blood orange zest and blood orange juice and seeing what happens.
Nice. What brewing software do you use, by the way?
I use one called Beersmith.
Beersmith. Is that
so it actually has a... Sorry, go ahead.
Is it paid software, I'm assuming?
It is, yeah. So it's $30, I think, somewhere in that range. It's been a while since I bought it, but you get a 30-day free trial.
Okay.
Ish. Might be 21 day.
We can link to it in the show notes too. So,
like I said, I've owned it for a couple of years. I don't remember exactly, but this software was developed by a homebrewer and PhD holder, and it is very advanced.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend watching the videos, the kind
How-tos.
of training videos that they have on the website.
Yeah.
But it is a very powerful program. It allows
Sure.
you to build the recipes, it gives you the brew steps, it lets you put in your own equipment profile. You can track your inventory, costs,
Wow.
your brew schedule, notes, everything you need to do can be done in this one program.
That's kind of crazy. Is it more for a craft brewer than a home brewer, or is it really homebrew geared?
So it's powerful enough for a craft brewer.
Okay.
Like there are actually a number of craft brewers that use it when they're developing recipes for their business.
Okay.
There are other programs out there, including some that are websites that are free, where you can go and you manage it all on the website. You can access it anywhere. Really super friendly, easy to
Sure.
use for anybody. And if you want to get started with that or use that entirely, go for it.
Nice. Nice. That's cool.
Um, you know, if you're math inclined and you want to learn the calculations,
Do it
do it by
yourself,
hand.
right? Yeah. Holy cow. Pass. I'm good.
Yep, I agree.
Not my thing. Just tell me how much and where to put it, and I'll do it. But yeah, cool. So hopefully that's a good rundown of some of the extra stuff that you could use, as well as if you do decide that you want to dive in and do more than just what the kit does, then you can be like Dennis and use Beersmith and create some of your own recipes and all that jazz. What final tip could you give people who had just picked up a kit for Christmas and are currently in the middle of making their beer?
I wouldn't necessarily consider it a tip, but just a word of advice.
Sure.
You've expressed interest in this hobby, whether you enjoy making things, being hands on, or just enjoy drinking good beer and want to try your hand at it. Don't get discouraged. You will end up with a bad batch, you will end up with an infection. Don't make that be the end of your hobby. If you enjoy doing it, keep trying.
Right, for sure. That's definitely good advice. I would say we've all been there. I'm speaking as part of Dennis. I mean, I know Dennis has had infections and all that not bodily infections. If you aren't familiar with that concept, your beer can actually get infected. Anyways, that's stuff that we can talk about some other time. We are going to go ahead and wrap up episode 8 here. Again, you can see this episode and all of the others on the eciov website. That is eciov.com/ABV. This is /8. ABV/8 for this episode. Thanks for listening, and hit us up with the email or YouTube or wherever with comments, questions, and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get to them in the next show. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks, Dennis, for being on.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Have a great night. Bye. All right. That is
Good.
the end of the podcast recording. If you are watching on YouTube, we're still here.
And in the future, when we start to get more live viewers, we'll probably hang out and actually chat afterwards.
Heck yeah. That's the goal. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's really nice to get going again here on the podcast. I think I told you before when we were doing this last time, it was our most popular podcast by far.
You did. Yeah, you did mention that, which is awesome.
Yeah. Thousands and thousands of listeners, which is really sweet. Partly because the name is cool.
It is. Very good name. Good job.
Thanks. I was surprised that no one had claimed it yet in the podcast realm.
I know. That's crazy.
But yeah, we are the only alcohol by volume in the iTunes store. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Anyways, anything else you want to leave on YouTube?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording.
All right. Sounds good.